to Beyond the Ring, a podcast that covers all things in the stock show industry from the informative to the insane, starring Ryan Rash.
If every critic could silence every artist, how dull would the world be then?
And Dale Hummel.
Inbreeding has its disadvantages, but produces a mean banjo player.
Now on with the show.
Welcome to Beyond the Ring. This is Dale Hummel, along with co-star Ryan Rash.
Hello, hello, hello.
Ryan, it's good to be back on U.S. soil.
I really thought you were going to stay in Switzerland. I'm a little disappointed.
I know you were aware of such, but no, we
I'm
are
very
back.
Disappointed you're back. The rest of your family could have come home, but you could have stayed there. I mean, it was fine.
I enjoyed it there, but that was long enough.
I'm glad that you enjoyed it because I hate that country. I am not going to lie. I do not like it. So just putting it out there.
Chase is very opposed to the fact that their neutrality and expectation that they're going to protect their ass.
I mean, what's that country music song? Like, you got to stand for something or you'll fall for anything. That's Switzerland. Yeah. Like, stand for something. Damn it. Like, no. I don't like neutral people. It is against me. Like my whole whatever to be neutral on anything. So
do you know what I do like about their country?
I don't care. I didn't like it. Oh my God, he's ringing a cowbell. Oh Jesus, you and
just
Sheree,
listening to that through
you need to go to Crockett and take your cowbell, and you and Sheree can have show and tell because she has the two that I want her. She has the one I bought her. You can bring yours. Y'all can do a whole podcast about your freaking cowbells. It'd be great.
You will hear cowbells in our pasture on the donors.
Oh,
won't it be great?
No.
Great.
No.
And we have one recip called Bluebell that's going to get one.
Dale is late as always. He's always late to the podcast. But I was talking to our good friend and our wonderful producer Clifton before Dale come on here, and so me and Clifton evidently are the only two people in the world that understand this. But this whole thing that everybody is doing. That's like Joe can't run. Nobody wants Joe to run. All these polls. Joe, go. Bye. Why? No, they need to let him run. They need to be on the White House lawn with pom-poms and fire batons going, go, Joe, go. Because, just as Clifton pointed out, a Republican with a pulse will beat this idiot. But instead...
he's not going to run.
Shut up, Dale. He needs to run.
I'm telling you the truth of the matter.
He needs to run. I am supporting Joe Biden for the Democratic nomination.
I will send money to Joe Biden if he'll run.
Oh, please. God, yes.
He will not run.
I have never wrote a check to anyone before in a political race because they all have too much money anyway. I'm with you. If they will let that poor son of a bitch run, I will write a check. I'll cut it right now. Just go.
I think it's going to be the exact scenario you played out a few weeks ago about
Hillary.
Yeah, coming in to save the day. I just have to do it for my party.
I know, but so if y'all probably don't watch the news and you don't want to, I don't blame you. So
you blame me for it?
Well, yes, but you are not doing our listeners any good because they come to us. I've had so many people say, I don't even watch the news anymore. I just listen to what y'all say. And you just go to Switzerland and be neutral and like, screw the USA for 10 days. But anyway, next.
They did not have Fox News there. All they had was the liberal CNN, BBC.
Well,
I couldn't do it.
So in the last week, Joe was giving a speech, and not only off a teleprompter, he said, and this is the exact line. He reads a quote and then says out loud, end of quote, repeat the line. And then he repeats the line that he just said. It was just
he did not.
Yes, I swear to God, this is all over Twitter, all over things. He says, end of quote, repeat the line. And then he repeats the line, one of the lines of the quotes he just read. That was that. Then today,
oh my.
I mean, today he's talking about his gun legislation that I guess they've signed it into whatever, but a grieving father who lost a child in the Overland Park shooting stands up and doesn't think that this should be celebrated or whatever, all this other stuff. So Joe tells him to sit down and listen to what the hell he has to say. Also,
Joe tells the father that.
Yes, to sit down and listen to what he said. And then
did you see this yourself?
Yes, and then he has the man escorted out. Yes.
And there is proof
facts.
This was a father.
Yes, I can tell you. I'll look up the damn kid's name. But
do you realize that if this would have been a Republican president, what that would have brought
the
upon
president
everything?
would have got escorted out, not the father. But
Yes.
but the other thing on this, what I love about all this is he also said that, or I'm sorry, the Parkland, Florida, not Overland Park. I don't know why I'm getting that confused, but anyway, is Overland Park in Chicago or something? I don't know. But anyway.
Highland Park, that's what you're thinking.
Highland, okay, anyway, but it's Parkland, Florida shooting, and so Manuel Oliver, it was the father, and Joaquin Oliver was one of the victims in that shooting. And so anyway, and it was in 2018. In part of Joe's speech, he brings up the shooting and says it was 1918. So he's only 100 years off.
Yeah, not bad for Joe.
Not bad. And then also, I've got one more little rant on Joe, and then I'm going to get to his son.
You're kind of on a rant today.
Yeah, but I did not know this till I was watching the news today. Did you know that when Teddy Roosevelt took office, Joe Biden was 2 years old?
I never thought about that.
I did not either.
Never.
But
I did know the fact that he is the oldest.
Yes, oldest sitting president ever.
Yes.
But yeah, Teddy took office.
That surprises me a little bit. I guess I wasn't aware of that.
But the only thing on Joe is I want all you Republicans to shut up. I want him to run. I think him and Camel Toe are great. Where do I cut a check? But I'm not cutting a check till I know they're running. Like, they have to be in the primaries. He may get beat, but he got to go.
Yeah, you know how bad that'd be. You cut him a check, and then that money all ends up going to Hillary.
No, I as long as the man will run, I don't care who runs against him. I'm gonna cut him a check because I support him. But now his son, God love Hunter. So this laptop keeps getting more dark and seated and whatever. And I don't know if y'all know, and I mean, but there's like this thing called Fox Nation, and it's kind of a like streaming version of Fox. I think you have to pay for it, but anyway. Judge Jeanine has done a 2-part series on who is Hunter Biden, and I haven't got to watch it yet, but I've seen the prelims, the highlights, reels, whatever. It's very interesting. But Hunter's laptop, now there is a video, and it has made it to mainstream media. Now, I don't know if it's on the other networks, but I watched it with my own eyes today on Fox News, and it is Hunter. There is no doubt it is Hunter. He is smoking a cigarette, he is naked, and he is weighing crack and talking about the weight.
And this was something he recorded on his laptop.
Yes, this idiot did this.
The fact that he would record that is just...
Why? Who records weighing crack? I mean, seriously? Like, But anyway, so
But hasn't Joe said he's the most intelligent person?
The most intelligent human being he's ever met. And he's also knows nothing about his business deals or anything like this. But yeah, so the Bidens are having some problems because one of the key voting groups that got him elected were the under 30 people. And today, a poll got released. 94% of Democratic voters under 30 do not want him as their presidential candidate.
That doesn't mean that if Hillary jumps in, they won't jump on her bandwagon, though.
I don't know. I'm just saying. But I love it how
they will. She's going to come in as the centrist, the moderate.
Camel Toe said today or yesterday, I guess, that she got asked this question, and she said, Joe intends to run. And if Joe runs, I will be running with him. That's not answering the question at all, by the way.
What was the question?
Is she going to run for vice president with Joe? Is Joe going to run? All this other stuff. Yeah, I mean, she just said she kind of sidestepped it. Intends to run. Or maybe I think she was asked exactly what was she going to be run for vice president again. And I think she said if Joe intends to run, so I intend to run with him. But your boy Pritzker is all out there. He's making a push.
Can you even imagine?
I can't. They're gonna have to get a bigger SUV for the president if he becomes elected. That man is huge. But anyway, Gavin is running ads in Florida, and Hillary has done more interviews in the last 3 weeks than she has since she got beat by Trump. So anyway, but I personally think you all need to shut up and let Joe run. Now, do you have anything to add on that? Because I have some other stuff.
I'll wait until you get done with your rant. I have one.
I'm done with Biden. So if
I have just one current events topic, and I'll wait till the end.
Okay. Well, Elon is now getting sued. Poor Elon. I hate this for Elon.
And you realize Trump is all in on that.
On Elon getting sued?
Anti-Elon.
Oh, yeah. He don't like Elon, but...
No.
Elon said, screw you, I'm not buying your company for $44 billion, and now Twitter is suing Elon. That's terrible. I don't mind Elon, but it's not...
I think he'll come out of this with a little bit of whatever the contractual penalty is for backing out of it at the worst.
Yeah, I think the only people that are going to win in this situation are the lawyers on both sides. And
I think this has destroyed Twitter. Destroyed.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And I'm all for that.
I'm not joking. I have Twitter. I don't tweet, but I have Twitter. I look at it, and it is nothing but politics and porn. That's all there is. But
there's that much porn on Twitter.
OnlyFans. That's where OnlyFans got started. Twitter.
I don't even know anything.
You don't need to know what OnlyFans is. But anyway, this is a junior. There are juniors listening. Anyway, so I don't know what to do about Elon, but I think that he probably really never had any... I think this was all a publicity stunt, is what I'm getting at.
I think so, and I hope it was. I think it was brilliant on his part. If he loses $1 billion or whatever it is contractually, so be it. He brought down Twitter, and I think that was his function to stop at least one of the platforms from being so destructive in terms of blocking certain content and allowing other content.
I guess that y'all probably don't keep up on this, but that January 6th racketeering riot committee, whatever, that's all just a big witch hunt. Anyway, so I told y'all a couple weeks ago that this dumb bitch said that Trump assaulted the, agents, and
you
tried
brought
to grab
out
the
you
steering
brought out
wheel.
all the things that could not have happened. Okay.
Right. And so anyway, then I told y'all that both of the agents and the driver of the SUV on this day and the man that she supposedly got, who she said told her this information, it was there. 4 different people sent letters to this committee saying they would like to testify because this is not true. Guess what? They never got contacted to be testified.
And you're hearing very little about it.
Yeah, there's nothing. But so yeah, there's that.
I don't think that January 6th hearing, and again, I'm not in favor of necessarily what happened by any means, but I think that's almost minimal compared to what laws are being broken, protesting our Supreme Court justices, and the crap that's going on surrounding that whole thing. We're on the verge, in my opinion, that no sane person is going to want to take a seat on the Supreme Court.
Yeah, no, that was my next deal. The Supreme Court nonsense is just out there. Like
when it's in law that you cannot protest in front of their homes, you can't try to intimidate, yet it continues to happen.
Well, yeah, that's the law, but also, and there's the other whole thing is like Judge Janine made up a very good point. Not only is that law there that you cannot protest at the home of a judge, all this other stuff,
or any form of intimidation,
right? Well, this is also harassment now. I mean,
yes,
and like she said there's like 3 degrees of harassment or whatever, and like she thinks that 2 of them it fits. But
which group is out there giving a reward for conservative Supreme Justice sightings at restaurants or anywhere? There's a group out there that'll if you text them, they'll give you $50, and if they're there for 30 more minutes, you get $200. And that's where it amazes me that these things, obviously somebody's behind it. Can we not determine? Do we not want to determine who's behind that and throw their ass in jail?
I don't know. It's wreck. Like I do not know who, as huge and like people work their whole life to just be thought about to be considered to be on the Supreme Court. I do not know anyone who would drag their family into this right now.
No, I agree, and it's so concerning to me that we have these laws in the books, just like the laws that we have in the books with the southern border issues and not
don't even bring up
not stopping the laws that are in place, yet we somehow choose not to enforce them. I wasn't aware that it was a choice when you should and shouldn't enforce the law. This is confusing to me.
It's a mess. It's a big old mess. I'm not gonna lie.
I don't know how it's even possible in our country.
Yeah, I don't either. But I thought I had something else, but I can't remember. I got so amped up over Joe running. You're kind
of on a rant.
He needs to run. He just
So
needs to run.
have you noticed that there's more people waking up to the threat of China and the division between the East and the West? Do you hear a little more about it?
No, I don't hear anything.
Other than from me.
No.
I am. Maybe
do.
it's one of those things I'm so sensitive to it. I pick up on everyone, but I believe the world is becoming, not that there aren't people aware of it, but I think they're becoming much more aware of the situation with China. And what frustrates me, so many things are frustrating me, but we have still essential products. When I define essential products that we really rely on being manufactured in China, and we're giving all this money to different social groups and in COVID relief and everything else, trillions of dollars. Yet I'm yet to see any money going to help a small business start up to produce some of those essential items that are currently being manufactured in China. There is absolutely no reason we don't make those items here, and we don't do more to try to buy less from China. And I know I'm on this every single week, but I'm just telling you, people are starting to talk more about the issues. Think about all the, and this came up because Joe had mentioned he was thinking about trying to eliminate or reduce the tariffs on Chinese products coming into the country that Trump had imposed, which is unbelievable to me. The crimes that China has committed against the United States in terms of stealing military information is unbelievable. That in itself, and that is, there's no question that they've hacked into those computers. Our government is aware of it, yet we continue to trade with them. We continue to rely on them for essential products. I wouldn't, if knowingly, I wouldn't go buy a shoestring from them. And yet we still have large portion of our products coming in. It's baffling to me. I'm to the point of frustrated that I think that our ignorance as a population in this country to this issue is going to be very detrimental long term. Enough said.
Not disagreeing with you there.
So I'm a little anti-China this week.
You think? I think you're anti-China every day, every hour, every minute. I am more concerned about that than anything I've been concerned with in my lifetime. And it's resonating, but not at the level that I think it should, or as fast as it should, because by the time the average person is concerned with it, it's going to be too late. Mm-hmm. Oh, and I didn't even tell you this, but you'll be so happy. So I can't believe I forgot to tell you. It's been a long day. Anyway, so last night I was at one of my favorite bars, and
you were at a bar.
Yeah, I know, shocking.
No way.
I know, just beyond belief. But anyway, there was this really liberal gay couple sitting next to me, and I mean, like, I think they have Biden underwear on, but anyway, they were going. The whole topic of conversation was about UFOs and how they believe, and I thought of you.
Did they have any good evidence?
They were quoting stuff like was there a hearing or a committee or something recently, and like they got all into it, and I was just like, I thought about texting you, but I was busy, and so it was late, and I know you don't like getting texts late, but
so
anyway.
we brought a new employee on. Actually, she was an intern several years ago, and we're excited to have her back here. Originally from Nevada and travels past Area 51 quite frequently. Chase and I were arguing again about UFOs, and she stepped in and gave us her own personal UFO sighting.
Oh, good. Well, no wonder she got a job at Hummel Livestock.
Well, maybe that I was unaware of that until after the hiring.
And then the only other thing that I have for current events, I have never done this before on this podcast. I've never done this on social media, but I'm going to ask y'all to pray for me. Okay?
Oh, it's the way you might want to stop here and think about this. I do not know where it's going.
I need y'all to pray for me.
Clifton, you can't edit this.
Right now, I am in Kansas City, Missouri, and I am judging. And yes, for all you people that don't understand, there is a Kansas City County Fair. It's not held at Kemper Arena. I'm not cool like that. I don't get to be there. I've never been asked to judge the role, but I do get to judge the Kansas City County Fair this week. But on Thursday, y'all going to have to pray because I am going to Canada. And my mother is going to Canada, but we're not going together. I am flying from Kansas City to Calgary. She is flying from Houston to Calgary. You know, she's an elderly woman, and I just don't, I think she's going to be in some, you know, like I don't know, communist prison instead of at the hotel when I get there. But y'all just pray, because if she does make it through customs and they don't lock the old lady up and she gets to the hotel, which still has not asked me what hotel we're at, by the way, I will probably physically harm her at some time in the next 3 days.
Because you should not say that.
I'm just being as honest. That's why I'm asking for prayers, okay?
I am more concerned about the fact of you judging cattle in Canada and not being real.
They're not going to like me. They didn't like me last time. It's fine. I've explained this to everybody. Nobody believes me.
Form to function, practicality, real world. I don't know. That's all.
For all of my faults, you should understand as much as anyone. I am very, very honest about my strengths, my weaknesses, my limitations, all these things. I know they are not going to like me. It is fine. I understand it. I am not expecting them to like me. They did not like me last time. I don't think they'll like me again. It'll be another 15 years before I go back.
And you did warn them, correct?
I did. I did. I told them.
That's full disclosure. That is. You can't do any more than that.
Listen, but anyhow, I'm more concerned about me and Cherie than I am the judging of it all. But
well, do you have as before we move into the main topic? Do you have any BTR JLA news?
Yes, I do. I have lots of BTR JLA news. Just on a news topic thing, I want y'all to really seriously. We're in the middle of July. We are going to close membership on September 30th, and there are like 9 million more shows to happen. So you can get at least, I would say, 25 rings very easily wherever you are in this great country if you signed up right now. And we've got almost all the region sponsors. We still need a couple of sponsors, but we've got some people working on them. But we still need region sponsors in Region 2 and Region 4. But y'all need to sign up because there are opportunities for y'all to win awards, and y'all are going to be kicking yourselves when you don't. But September 30th will be here before you know it. You've got to sign up before then. We're going to take applications, sanctioning forms, which is submitted online. I haven't made a firm date yet, but I'm thinking the end of October will be the last day to sanction for 2022. But lots of cool things happening. So many shows. So many shows. We just now, when I logged in to the point system, we are over 400 sanctioned events in the point standings already. That's not rings. That's just events. So probably most shows have multiple species. It's probably 800 different rings, but 400 shows have been put in the points already.
I was going to ask you that. That's a lot.
Yeah. And so again, that's not rings. So double that. So that's like 800 or more rings, but lots. We could not do any of this without our sponsors. I really appreciate all the sponsors. I'm going to do a corporate one today. Showcoat, Leonard Truck and Trailer, and JH Cattle, Mini Herefords, and Mini Mafia. And that's the one I'm going to focus on because they get one more podcast advertisement spot. So this is theirs. But JH Cattle, Mini Herefords is located in Carbon, Texas, owned and operated by Will and Shelby Hogan and their daughters, JC, Hannah, and Adeline. They raise and show mini Herefords, and they do it as a family. They love supporting the youth. And so if you need a mini Hereford champion, please contact JH Cattle, Mini Herefords. Mini Mafia is the only publication in the miniature Hereford industry. Their goal is to provide a wealth of knowledge for the mini Hereford exhibitor, breeder, and enthusiast. They are expanding their capabilities every single day to help the rapidly growing miniature Hereford industry. They want to focus on the quality of the breed themselves because it is drastically improved over the last 5 years, and they want to match that with the marketing efforts and outlets for their breeders. By the end of the year, they plan to have Mini Mafia family members, a one-stop shop for all your marketing tools in the Mini Hereford deal. So please support JH Cattle, Mini Herefords, and the Mini Mafia magazine publication. We greatly appreciate their corporate sponsorship along with Showcoat and Leonard Truck and Trailer. And then I will read one top 10 list, and I think you're going to like this one, Dale. You don't like most of them, but I think you're going to like this one. This is a top 10 senior hog, but it's very well dispersed, I think. Winning is Emily Hemphill of Berlin Center, Ohio. Second is Abby Lillard of Abilene, Kansas. Not Abilene, Texas, Abilene, Kansas. Third is Dylan Duncan from Bargersville, Indiana. Fourth is Caden Bryant of Glenwood, Arkansas. Fifth is Ashlyn Summers of Hyco, Texas. Sixth is Caitlin Dutton of Eagle Creek, Oregon. Seventh is Cole Baker of Zanesville, Ohio. Eighth is Emma Sims of Sweet Springs, Missouri. Ninth is Kaylee Byram of Sheldon, Missouri. And rounding out the top 10 at this time is Drew Ramey of Franklin Furnace, Ohio.
I am impressed. 8 different states represented.
See, I told you you'd like this one.
And even more impressed, I think that's the best you've done pronunciating the names.
The names were easy on this one. I love it when the people message me, and I've only really butchered 2 names, I think.
Oh,
but,
I don't know about that.
Oh, the only 2 that I've been contacted about. But anyway, we're really excited about all the things happening in the BTRJLA, and hopefully, if my trophy maker Tucker Long will get the prototype done, then I can put it on social media for y'all to see, and it's really, really gonna be exciting. I saw a little sneak peek of it for the trophies for the national awards, and I tell you what, they are really, really cool. But gotta wait till we get a finished prototype to show it off. But hopefully Tucker's working on that as we speak. So I know you have your favorite sponsor of all time that you have to plug. So
I'm a pretty big water kind of guy.
I know you are, and as hot as it is, y'all need to keep those animals hydrated. Dear Lord,
yes.
My God, bless any of y'all going to shows. Bless your heart, especially in Texas. Jesus Christ.
So once again, we appreciate the willingness of ShowFresh H2O to give back to the junior livestock industry via their continued sponsorship of this podcast. At this point, I think all of our listeners, Ryan, know what I think about keeping show stock hydrated and encouraging water intake while in transit and at the shows. It's a simple fix, as ShowFresh H2O can be purchased at your local livestock supply trailer, or you can go to swampfox.com to purchase online. How much easier is that? It is not hard. It does not cost a lot. It's simple. You don't have to haul your own water. The animals will do better in the show. Isn't that our goal, to do better in the show?
That's my goal.
Kind of like your build back better or build barns better or whatever better. Same thing.
One lady did not like that, but that was on your Facebook, not mine. So
no, she was very, very angry about we should make the most of the barn we have.
We didn't say you had to go build a new barn right now, damn it.
No.
We said if you were going to, lady.
Something about printing money like Joe Biden.
Oh, well, there you go.
I tried to answer in a professional
manner. I would have just blocked her. I'm just telling you.
Work.
I would have just blocked her.
I understand. Are we ready for the main topic?
Sure, why not?
This main topic's going to have 2 titles. I'll read the first one. That's going to post. And then Ryan is welcome to come in.
You don't like my topic.
No, I don't. It just won't. Social media, it may not be well received in some circles. Okay, the main topic, the official main topic. Inbreeding backed by science or old wives' tales?
I liked incest is best, but I mean, I think it's short.
I don't know if they would cancel us on
punchy, and I think that we would get a whole new audience of listeners just off that title alone. They probably won't stay very long, but
we may run 2 social media posts, one with that and one with the other, just in case something goes wrong.
Right. But anyway, I think mine's very cute. But next. When I asked for topics a couple weeks ago, maybe a month now, I don't know, but y'all didn't do real well. I'm just going to be real honest. I didn't get many. And
now, I have quite a few that came through I don't know if you've looked at them on the Facebook Beyond the Ring page.
No, I don't get to do that.
Yeah,
don't let me do those things.
Well, you have access to it, but I will dig through. There's quite a few.
But this is one that came up a lot. And another one that came up a lot was fitting stuff, and so we're going to try to work on that too. And then y'all going to hear me give my 2 cents about professional fitters. And so, but this was one that a lot of people asked about. And so, again, I know relatively little. I mean, we have bred all kinds of cows. We had goats. We've had sheep. I never had a pig. But, I mean, we've done lots of breeding decisions. We just really didn't do this line breeding thing very much. But so I'm gonna have to ask a lot of questions of Dale. But I do think it's an interesting topic, and I mean, I'm not completely ignorant on it, but I do not think I have the depth of knowledge that Mr. Humble Livestock does in this case.
I don't know if I have a depth of knowledge, just experience inbreeding, line breeding, whatever you want to call about it, in the livestock realm, not the human realm. We're gonna leave that one alone. What I would like to do to begin with, and then would love to have Ryan tune in here. There is sometimes some confusion between inbreeding and line breeding, and for the most part, by the raw, true definition, I'm going to say that inbreeding and line breeding are for the most part the same. However,
aren't they the same thing?
They are, but definitions evolve, and I think the common perception. So I don't know if you can say they are or aren't, but they started out that way. But common perception now would be inbreeding is like a father-daughter mating, a very close mating. Line breeding, maybe a cousin to a cousin. Or some will tell you if it works, they call it line breeding. If it doesn't work, they call it inbreeding. So there's a lot of confusion.
See, now that is exactly what I have been like. When it doesn't work, it's inbreeding. When it does work and it's very successful, oh, it's just a line bred animal. So that's why I thought they were the same thing.
That is interesting to me because I haven't heard that a lot until I did just a little bit of research today. And that is nothing more than, I think we're being very racist against inbreeding, the term inbreeding.
That is just spin is what that is, period.
Yes, that would be absolute spin. So I can think through history, and I'll bring up some examples in the livestock arena where, and we're going to use the word inbreeding, has been very, very beneficial in producing show stock. And because we kind of circle around the junior livestock arena, we're going to apply this more to show stock than the real world, but we can do both, and the same principles apply here. What concerns me sometimes, Ryan, when you think of inbreeding, what are some of the negative connotations that would come to play? Livestock, we're going to say, right. We're going to stay on the livestock side.
I think a bunch of them are old wives' tales and exaggerated and all these things, and I'm not saying that some of this doesn't happen, but like animals with two heads or club feet or spider syndrome and sheep and all kinds of stuff like that. I mean, again, but just deformities, I guess, would be something that a lot of people think.
I think that ties with it, and that is a common perception. And I think I can add some clarity to it, and I'll try to do it in a manner that's easy to understand. There's some things that we assume that you're going to get this fifth leg hanging out the shoulder of a calf if we're inbreed too tight, or two heads or whatever. Most of those things, such as those examples, are nothing more than mutations. And mutations can happen in inbreeding, but they're no more likely to happen during inbreeding than they are in crossbreeding, two animals that have no relationship whatsoever. So mutations, we need to realize that's totally different. That does not increase with inbreeding. That's just something in nature that happens at a certain percentage of the population. Whether it's inbreeding, crossbreeding, doesn't matter. And that's, unfortunately, when those things happen, sometimes we try to associate that with inbreeding. There is one issue that we can look at if you want to try to be negative on inbreeding. There's several positive and negative, but one of the things that we can think about, if we have an animal, Ryan, that looks really, really good, I don't care what species it is, there could be recessive genes there for certain detrimental, or we could say there's detrimental alleles that are hiding in there that are recessive, that do not express themselves unless in the homozygous state. So we have to bring those two negative genes or detrimental genes, whatever you want to talk about it, together. And when this happens, it all of a sudden expresses itself. So we could have two perfectly animals that we think are near perfect that breed together. If they're both carrying something detrimental that is the same in a recessive state, there's a chance that that's going to show itself. And that you could say that that's coming from inbreeding. Well, it increases your chances if your original animals have those defective issues.
Right.
Let's take another look at it. What if those two animals don't have any hidden recessive negative issues to deal with? If they don't have any to begin with, or if you have the patience over time to cull those negative genes out and not use their offspring and only continue to use the ones that are expressing positive traits. So either over time, generationally, that is the direction it's going, or we simply don't have them there to begin with. Guess what? They can't if you continue to inbreed, they can't just show up. So if you can start with clean animals from a genetic disorder standpoint, maybe is the best way to explain it, you're going to continue to breed clean animals. Or if you start with animals that may have that, in each generation select against that, eventually you will take that out of the gene pool. So we have to reevaluate that inbreeding doesn't necessarily cause genetic disorders, or it doesn't cause 5 legs or things like that. But if there are genetic disorders present that are in the recessive state, you are more likely to expose that by breeding a father to a daughter or whatever that may be. But just as likely, if there's nothing there to begin with, you can use it as an advantage that it's never going to be there. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes total sense. And I think one of the things that when this topic came up so much or got so many requests, I think the one thing that we need to point out is, just like you're saying, there is chances for things to go wrong. But I think the more interesting thing for our listeners would be is, why do people do this? Why is it successful? What are the benefits that come from it? And because it is really very prevalent in the livestock show industry. I know people don't focus on that, but it's true. I mean, it is very prevalent, and it has been very successful. And I think those are some of the things that I think the listeners would be interested in.
We can address that. And I think, and I can go back many, many years, and I used to teach a genetics course. And one of the examples that I had used is a lot of people, if you can go back in time, whether it's show stock or performance animals, whatever it may be, that they heard about positive coming from inbreeding, but they didn't want to sacrifice their best cow and breed her back to her father or her son for fear it wasn't going to work and they're going to miss that generation. So instead of inbreeding with their very best, they chose to use 2 average animals. What do you think happens when you inbreed 2 average animals?
You multiply that
averageness. Exactly. It's very simple, isn't it?
Yeah.
And when they did that experiment, they got just average ones. They didn't get a great one. So their hands-on experience was a negative experience. They thought, well, if they inbred these, maybe we'll get something great. It doesn't work that way. And I want to point out the fact Ryan brought out, over time, there's been a lot of show operations and even today that are using inbreeding very heavily. We're using it right here every single day in our goat operation. And I can assure you that this gene pool of weather producing goats that we have is probably the most inbred set of genetics in the show stock industry. And I'm not sure if people are aware of that or not, but I can go into more detail and explain it. But it all revolves around these principles that if we start with if I have an animal that I think is close to ideal for where the trend is, or where I think the trend's going to be in a couple years, my expectations are, if I inbreed that animal very tightly, I'm not going to make a better one than that. But what I will do is replicate that one on a more consistent basis, and hopefully get more animals of a very similar quality to that. And when you can do that, and if you're predicting the trends with your generational intervals in the right time, you're going to be able to capitalize on that. So don't think that you're going to make a better one than what you started with. But if you start with the absolute best, hopefully we can narrow the gamete pool. And as we narrow the gamete pool, there's less chance of inconsistency and different things happening. So each time we inbreed from one generation to the next, in theory, we're allowing less to random chance and more to exactly what we want to happen. And
I think that's what, people need to hear and understand and stuff like that, because again, this isn't talked about a whole lot, but it is pretty prevalent out there. And I think one of the best points that you brought up was when they inbred or line bred 2 average animals, they got an average animal. Well, that's the same if you're not doing this. If you breed 2 average ones of totally different backgrounds or genetics, you're still going to most likely come up with an average animal. And so
that's just exactly how it's going to happen.
I think those are things that need to be brought out and brought up. But I do think that it is a topic that people don't talk about, and I think that that's probably why we got so many requests. And again, I think all the things that you're bringing up so far are very interesting. So please continue.
Well, think about the old wives' tales, and there's a lot of them out there about inbreeding and how it's going to cause problems. And you know what? I'm sure they stemmed from that animal that looked perfectly normal before we completely understood genetics, but had a recessive defective trait. And when we bred that animal to another one, that son or father or whatever it may be, the likelihood that that recessive trait was there, all of a sudden those two recessives come together in a homozygous state and something odd happens. A defective trait shows itself. And it makes sense that people would associate inbreeding then with these problems. And I get it, but it really has nothing to do with that. We can have two totally unrelated animals that have that same defective gene that it's just as likely to happen when we bring those together. But because of the way population genetics works, if we breed a father to a daughter and there's something in that line, yep, we're more likely to expose it. In fact, before we had a complete understanding and ability to run genetic profiles, if you wanted to find out if a line was clean for a certain genetic defect, the easiest way to do that was to make multiple very close relative matings. And over time, if you had enough of those, you could pretty much rule it out. But if you bred a father back to his daughter and there was something going on in that breed that was an issue and it didn't show up, it doesn't mean it's definitely not there, but your chances are better when it didn't show up that, hey, this might be a clean line. Now we can run a genetic profile on most of the genetic defects, not all of them, but most of them, and determine whether or not that works. So Ryan had mentioned there's been success, and there is today, and I'd like to think that, and I'm not sure that anybody out there even realizes that we've continued to line breed the goats that we have for a very long time or very many generations. But there is a hog farm in California. I think we brought this up one other time, Ryan, that's interesting example for us. Gunland Swine Farms, they had a large wine operation, winery, I guess you call it, or great production or whatever. Vineyards. There we go. Vineyards. And they also had pigs. I don't think they were absolutely reliant on the pigs for income, but they enjoyed them, and that was kind of their hobby. And they continued to select for a certain type of pig that they liked, irregardless of what was popular in the show ring. It just so happened that the show ring trend moved in the direction they were selecting for. And all of a sudden, they've got these really lean, very muscular hogs that have a cool front end to them, very fine, very thin hair coat with good skin, the opposite of kind of where today is. Mm-hmm. When the trend went that way and they wanted that fresh look before we were really clipping hogs, or a period that we weren't, all of a sudden these hogs became insanely popular. And I can remember making a trip out there to buy some replacement gilts from them. In going through their operation, they had a fairing house like you'd normally see, a nursery, and then kind of a finisher. Well, guess what? By the time they got to the nursery, they were selling so fast. Most of that nursery was empty, and there was nothing left in the finishing building. I mean, it was just about that things were just selling so quickly. Every single one they wanted to let go were being sold. They were having crazy success all over the country with these hogs, and they never once tried to breed for what the trend was or what the show ring wanted. It just kind of happened to hit what they were doing, and they had been breeding these hogs intensely for many generations for those specific traits. And when you take one of those hogs and breed them to something else, we talk about prepotency. They would tend to throw their traits, because of the lack of gamete variation. You would get more consistency even when you'd crossbreed with these. To a certain extent, you would find more of the hogs that looked a little more like these Gunland genetics than maybe what the other half of the equation was. So that was insanely popular, and it wasn't done for any reason other than that was the kind of hogs that they truly liked. There was one other example, a clubland producer, Mr. Fields in Ohio, and I think some of the Ohio natives and others in the clubland business, this was many years ago, was doing something very similar where he is producing extremely thin, tight-hided sheep that were very, very muscular, maybe just a little bit moderate in their frame. And this was before people in our livestock show world, before the masses understood that we can take those moderate frame sheep and goats, and if we keep them around long enough, make them really hard doing and slow growing and all the things that sometimes we indirectly promote, that extra mature extra mass that comes with maturity once they proportion out frame-wise is a huge advantage. And this was happening a very long time ago with these field sheep, and they were so lined up consistent. I mean, just crazy freak hides, crazy muscular at that time. Huge success once again. And those are going back to some from quite a while ago. I don't know that there's one out there that I can just point to right now and say, this is a very successful operation. They're kind of broadcasting that they're having a lot of success with inbreeding or things like that. But as you stated, Ryan, it's happening. Maybe we're taking a small portion of our animals or our genetic base and inbreeding with, and the others were not, versus like those two operations that everything was highly inbred. I would tell you right now, our weather-based genetics, we will go out and bring an outcross in. And once we make that outcross mating back onto our extremely lined up genetics or inbred genetics, we will continue. There's what we call our half blood, half our genetics, half something else. Then we'll come back on our genetics to 75% and then continue breeding up. And we just bring that outcross shot in to try to bring that one trait. And we may flush our best 6 donors to this outcross and only keep maybe one buck or not even one if we don't find that perfect one. Maybe keep a couple donor females, but again, only keeping those best ones that have that trait that we're looking for. And once we know that trait is in that genetic base, we will bring our genetics back on top of it time and time again and hope to keep that trait. And if we can keep it for a couple generations, all of a sudden, our inbred base has encompassed that particular trait, and all of a sudden we've made another advancement. The problem with this is, think about the time it takes to do this and the discipline to stay on that course. It would be so much easier just to reach out from many different places and bring those genetics together and hope that it's going to work. Ryan, I guess I got a question from you. When you're thinking about making a cattle mating, if you have a heifer that's really, really good in a lot of places, maybe she's not the best in her rear hock and pastern, what kind of bull are we going to go search for?
The one that's really good in their hock and pastern.
It's simple. People do it every day, right?
Right.
Now, because we think, well, this heifer's got all these positive traits, this bull's got a great hind leg in him, we're going to think about the positive that she can give and the positive that the bull brings together. What we sometimes fail to realize, it's just as likely we're going to get the hind leg genetics from that heifer that's terrible, and maybe some of the traits from the bull that aren't great, but he still has that great hind leg, and bring all those negatives together. We never, when we're making those breeding decisions, I shouldn't say never, oftentimes we always look at the positive pieces from each and envision that we're going to bring the positive from each. I can assure you, when gametes come together, it is very random and very much by chance. And there's just as likely a chance that we're going to bring the negative traits from each of them together as there is the positive traits.
And talking about those examples that you used and brought up of how well they did in the show industry and stuff like that. And again, I know that my time in the show ring was a long time ago, but the absolute most successful Simmental show heifer that I ever showed, who got a piece of every major show in this country, she was like the cow and the bull that she was out of the same sired both of them. And so, again, that's pretty tight. I had many a steer that doubled up on, both sides of the pedigrees and stuff like this. So this has been around for a long time. And again, it's had a great deal of success. I guess one of my questions for you, Dale, is which of the species do you think is currently using this technique the most, or do you have an idea?
I do, and I think it's by default. I think in the club or the weather goat industry, because it's so much newer, and we're trying to make so much progress, that the genetic pool
is so limited.
So I don't think it's intentional. I think because it's so limited, it's happening more there. Yeah. But if we throw that aside, I think it's a toss-up. You've got some club lamb guys that maybe don't talk about it a lot, but they're going to line them up. You've got certain hog operations going really hard. You've got some of the Simmental guys lining things up. So I outside of by default the weather goat industry having to do it, I think it's pretty equal across the board. But that does bring me to something I want to bring up, because it falls into that old wives' tale and still proves a point genetically for us. and this comes from the swine industry. I had a livestock breeder by the name of Todd Boykin once explained to me while I was teaching, and I incorporated this comment or theory that he latched onto into my genetics class. He explained to me that there was a breeding obstacle out there that I wasn't aware of. And before I go into this theory that he had, and it wasn't necessarily his, many hog producers, and I'm sure I hope we get some comments coming in that will also talk about this, because I'm interested to hear where they're at on this right now. But I have a great respect for Todd as a livestock breeder, his practical knowledge. When he says something to me, it made me want to stop. I've got to at least think through it, even though I thought it was completely ridiculous. And I told him I thought it was ridiculous. It made me think many, many nights when I'm going to sleep, is there anything to this? And this was something he called genetic immunity. Have you ever heard of genetic immunity?
I have heard of that before, but I'm betting that what I understand it is probably not as correct as what you're going to tell us.
I think right now in genetic immunity, you think about programming or manipulating the DNA to be resistant to certain diseases. That's kind of where the new world would go on. This was a while ago, where genetic immunity at that time, as he explained it, if you get a great litter out of a specific boar and a specific sow, perfect, best litter you've ever had, wins everything you could imagine. The litter was deep. Just envision the best litter you could possibly put together. The next time she comes into heat, Ryan, what would be the logical thing for you and I to do?
To do it the same.
That's easy, isn't it?
Yeah.
He would not.
Why?
Absolutely would not, because he says that this thing called genetic immunity, once you have a mating that worked between two animals, it will never work again.
I call bullshit on that.
I called it ridiculous. I lost a little faith in him for a little while, but I had enough respect for him. I thought about it more and more. So I think there's an explanation to it. And I could be totally wrong. Maybe it's real. I don't know, but I'd love for hog producers out there that have heard of this and are aware of it to touch base, Facebook, text, whatever it is, because I'm curious about this. And I consider it an old wives' tale, and maybe I'm wrong, because when I dug into it deeper, there were a lot of old school hog breeders that were absolutely, I mean, they may have sold a litter for a fortune. They would not do it again. And that intrigued me. I was curious that, wow, if they're putting their livelihood at stake by they could do better financially if they did it in theory and weren't, maybe there was something to it. I think this goes back to the inbreeding a little bit. And these animals, it has nothing to do whether they're crossbreeding or inbreeding. They just won't mate them together. But if we talk about inbreeding, every time we make that mating and throw out the ones that we don't want and continue to focus on those offspring and keep back offspring that fit that direction of those original lines, those original parents that we had, we continue to narrow that gamete pool. When I say narrow the gamete pool, we have less variation. They're all going to be, for the most part, heavy muscle. They're all going to be good on their feet, or whatever we're selecting for. We can continue to narrow that. We can come up with an animal by random luck breeding two together that are maybe considerably better. We talk about cows that outbreed themselves, or we have a mating that works so well. Well, a lot of it is random chance that the positive gametes from each cap to come together instead of the negative ones. But in this situation, that perfect litter was probably a result of the very positive gametes from each, the sire, the boar, and the sow coming together. And the odds of that happening are probably pretty low. But if you make that mating again, if this litter was so good, let's say the odds of that happening were like 2%. Okay, we make that litter again, 98% of the time it will not be as good. And that's just science. It's statistics. It's common sense in my mind. The more I think through it, that, yeah, if you have that good of a litter, it probably won't repeat itself. But I'm still willing to take the chance, because guess what can happen? It can do it again. We at least know what can be done. So I'm willing to take that chance rather than randomly grab something else to breed to that sow or breed that boar to a different sow or whatever it may be. So it does make sense. When they've had that great litter and they've repeated the mating, statistics say it's not going to happen as well again in terms of a litter that deep and that good. Did I confuse you on this one, Ryan?
No, I can understand some of that, and I'm not saying that there's not, some depth or some, something to that at all. But also on the same token, if that was absolutely 100% true and there was no other way, then people would not be flushing the cows or the sheep or whatever, the same way they have and continue to get good results.
Nope, I agree with you. It'll be interesting if we get any feedback. And this first time he presented to me, I'm going to say it was 20 years. I mean, it was a long time ago, and I haven't heard the term, and I am not really in the pig circles, so I don't hear that. But I guarantee you, there's some people listening that have heard this and maybe even still subscribe to that theory. But that, after a year of thinking about it, visiting with different swine producers, that's what I came up with is statistically, the chances of that great litter happening to begin with were pretty low. Not that it couldn't, and it so happened it did. The next time you made them, you just aren't going to get as lucky with which gametes come together. So I think that's where we're at is my best guess anyway.
Yeah, I see that.
I've got a couple other things that I want. I'm being pretty positive on the inbreeding right now, so I want to be fair. I want to show both sides of the situation.
Please don't go into a morality issue.
No, I don't. No, if there was morals in animals or livestock, by nature they wouldn't be breeding. Yeah, we're going to leave that alone. Okay, with that. We do have something called heterosis, which is when we take two animals that aren't related, they'll get a genetic boost in terms of growth rate. Yes, they're going to get up and get going. There's some advantages to that. As we inbreed, people say if you inbreed too much, you lose growth rate, you lose all these things. You don't necessarily lose those things, but you're not gaining the advantage of heterosis. So by inbreeding, you are when we first started crossbreeding animals, like even in the show ring, the first crossbred steer, all of a sudden open the door, and we've got crossbred steers winning the next 50 years. We lose what we call heterosis, hybrid vigor, that advantage that we get when we bring two different genetic lines together. So there is that negative that comes into play, and I hope that people also understand that if we take that line-bred animal, that inbred animal that maybe has not experienced that heterosis, it seems as though we have a heterosis explosion when we take that tightly lined up animal for many generations and breed it to an outcross. We get even more heterosis than we would by just two crossbred animals coming together, for whatever that may be. Do you remember, Ryan? I don't like to talk about the age of any female ever, your age, but do you recall when people used to subscribe to the theory they wanted to crossbreed with two pure animals, whether it's hogs or cattle or whatever it would be, an Angus to a Hereford or a Duroc to a Hampshire, not a crossbred to a crossbred?
Maybe. I'm just being honest.
Yeah, but I don't think that's something that people think as much about now.
No.
But there was a time that there was a big battle, and I'm going to go back to the theory that a purebred animal is closer to an inbred animal than a crossbred is, if that makes sense. Even though we can have inbred crossbreds.
See, that's logical.
Yes. So when you take two pure animals from two more different genetic lines, you're going to get more heterosis. So that would be the theory why they're wanting to breed purebred A to purebred B, because you're going to maximize heterosis. We can go one step further now with heterosis by taking inbred A and breed to anything, or even to inbred B with no genetic ties between them, the two inbred groups. I'm sure I'm confusing the shit out of most people.
I'm following.
I hope not. I hope it makes some sense. But I think in general, Ryan, the perception of inbreeding is probably still pretty negative in the show.
The only thing is, I don't know if it's negative, but I think, and again, I think this is why kind of the listeners wanted this topic. I mean, because it wasn't just like a handful of people that sent this to me. It was more than quite a few. I don't know if it's thought of negatively, but it's one of those things that we just choose not to talk about, even though we know it's happening and out there and stuff like that. And I really don't know why. Because, you can go back to the start of show stock, and this has been going on. Like I said, there's no morality issues in livestock breeding or anything like this, so I don't know why it's so taboo. But, it's there, it's relevant, it's useful, and just like everything else, it has pros and cons. It's not, I'm not telling everybody to go out and I don't think you are either, and just completely line or inbreed from now on. But there are lots of examples, and not just individual examples, but lots of operations and that have been built on this that have been quite successful in all the species, and not just back then, not just during the middle, but still now to this day. And so again, it's an interesting topic. I don't know why it's so taboo. I don't know why people don't discuss it more openly, but they don't. But that's what we're here for.
I hope this helps, and I can give a personal example on this, and I don't know that the listeners out there or most people that are out there realize how inbred our goats are. But when we bought out Kelly meat goats in Texas 10 plus years ago, he had already lined those up pretty tight for the most part. And we've done nothing for 10 plus years, but line it up tighter. So, and there's plenty of people in the goat industry that realize that we're doing this, and some think we're crazy for it. Some think it's working great, and you have every opinion in the world. I don't think twice. I don't hesitate. As I talked about, we'll bring a piece in here or there and then breed back up so we don't lose that genetic core. And we even have what I call a nucleus that I will never allow other genetics to come into. And that nucleus may not be where I want to be today, but it's holding what I call that pure genetic base that I can go back and grab as I need it. And that's worked out really, really well. And then there may be another little segment of the population that'd be that research and development that we'll throw out there, bring something in that's a little out of the ordinary, maybe outside the box, and see where that is. But it's held within that population where it doesn't pollute everything. In case it doesn't work, I haven't diluted something. I always have that nucleus to go back to. So I don't hesitate on the goats whatsoever. Just it's there. It's easy. And I've never really talked about it, and certainly not on the podcast, but that's how that is. Ryan, what is your favorite Angus bull of all time?
Augie.
Okay. We like this bull we call Argentine. A great
His name
deal.
is Augie. His name is not Argentine.
Augie. Okay. I think he's where I want to be.
That's what I said. I think we should just inbreed the shit out of him.
Okay, so guess what I have out. I can see her out the window right now. She doesn't have her cowbell on yet, but she's going to.
Uh-huh.
I have a full sibling to his mother. Okay, and she looks just like him. I am hesitant to breed Argentine back to a full sibling of his mother because I
do it.
I want to do it because that is what I want to create, but I am making some assumptions that maybe I shouldn't, and maybe our listeners can help me. I don't know within the Angus business if that would be very well accepted.
I don't.
Not that anything
good.
Yeah, not that anything that I do is going to be made.
I don't think the Angus people accept you anyway. So
no,
I mean,
this is a little out of the. But doesn't that make sense? I got the mother that looks just like him. That's where I want to be, regardless of where anything else. And I'm going to continue to produce what I want to produce. So I'm going on the record. She's going to be flushed at least one time to basically her son.
I don't think there's any sense in not trying it. I mean, just like. I think this concept or this technique or whatever everything else, it is just like any other concept or technique that we use in the livestock industry to try to make them better, to get ahead, to get an advantage and all this stuff. And yes, it works. It's successful. Also, sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's just a draw. Like nothing really happened one way or another. There are things that screw up in it sometimes, but I think the main purpose of talking about this is not only to give, information and kind of, tell the story of it, but also say it is just a technique, just like every other technique, like AI or embryo transfer or, using sex semen, or it is another technique. It is another tool that can be useful. It can be productive. It can be successful, and it also can be not. It just is what it is. Exactly.
No, it makes perfect sense. I'm going to be in Argentina in a couple weeks, and the reason for going
nobody
down there.
Invited me.
Oh, we did.
You invited me like 2 months ago.
Callie's going.
Yeah. Okay. Well, some people don't have. I have 9,000 shows to judge this summer already lined up. I asked you in the middle of Rona.
Well,
Give me the dates, and you did not.
I did not know
so
if it was
now
they canceled it last
next year. I need the dates for next year now.
That. So my reason for going down there,
I personally think that I need to judge this show.
No, that is my absolute bucket list right there. That's it. Period. Okay, with that said, the reason I'm making the trip down there again is to locate genetics that are very similar to Argentine that I can bring up through embryos and continue to build that nucleus. Remember, we talked about that nucleus in the goats. It takes longer for me starting from ground zero in the cattle thing to build that pure nucleus. And what I'll do is continue to breed animals that are very similar bred to what Argentine is and keep that line pure. Always have a pure line of that I never ever dilute, and use the same philosophy there. And hopefully it's the sound, functional, thick, still good looking enough for the show ring, basically creating something that works so well in the real world and still gets along in the show ring. I know that seems like an impossible task, but that's the goal. That's the vision to be able to do that. So I hope it works. It'll be interesting to go down there. And yes, I will get you the dates for next third week in July, just like clockwork.
Well, see, that's all you have to say.
Well, Ryan, I don't know how well received this topic will be. I'm sure there's going to be some people that are extremely interested in it, others that care less. But we did get a lot of requests for it, and Ryan brought it to my attention. I think you did today, actually.
And it's actually given me another idea for another topic that we're not going to do next week, but we can do down the line, which I find very interesting, and I would like your take on it too, is this cloning of it all. But that's another topic.
Yes, I would love that. That is a good one. No, I think we can go down that road because there's so many unanswered questions.
Yes,
on that. Is. And I think you could go, if I'm my research on cloning, we've cloned several animals.
Stop.
Okay, I'll leave it alone. I'll leave it alone.
It's another topic.
I kind of want to talk about that.
Yeah, I know. Well, maybe we will do it next week then, since you're excited.
Okay, it is time. It is time.
Would you stop just a minute before you get to your favorite little part of the whole damn podcast every single week? But anyway,
all right.
I do want to say, again, the BTR-JLA sponsors mean everything to us. Without them, because we did not charge for sanctioning fees this year, this wouldn't be happening. And so I just want to give a shout out to our top 10 jacket sponsors. That is the Magnus family. The South Texas show series in Kingsville, Texas. Their shows are coming up in September, October, and December. I'm judging the one in December. Ranch House Designs. Rachel, we appreciate your support. And also congratulations to your daughter Molly on having a division champion at the All-American, which is the Brahman Junior National. And the other top 10 jacket sponsor is Bullseye Ranch, which are huge, very successful Brahman breeders. And congratulations to them, because Barry and Charlotte Smith, who own Bullseye Ranch, their grandson had the grand champion Gray Bull at the All-American, which is the National Brahman Show. So Magnus Family, Ranch House Design, South Texas Show Series, and Bullseye Ranch, we really, really appreciate your sponsorship of the top 10 jackets for 2022.
That sounds like good karma.
Yeah.
Donate, and you're going to get along at the next show.
There you go.
I like that. I like that a great deal. Okay, it is time. Question and answer. The first one, and all of these today are anonymous. And
I don't like the anonymous one.
Well, I don't know that they need to be.
I don't like this.
You'll like one of these that I put on there that I could have eliminated, but I did leave it in there.
Oh, good.
Hey, Ryan and Dale, I need some advice on a county fair situation. Our goat committee
is always a county fair showmanship. Why? Why is it always?
Everybody has a county fair. That's it. Period.
I know. I judge them all.
Yes, you do. And I'm so thankful that you get out there and do that.
Yes.
Hey, Ryan and Dale, I need some advice on a county fair situation. Our goat committee has always used the sheep judge as the goat judge at our county fair. In some situations, the judge has even stated that they aren't very comfortable sorting goats, but somehow every year the sheep judge sorts the goats. This results in the judge always picking the sheep of the group, not necessarily the best of the group. That's a little confusing to me, but we'll get to it.
Yeah, I don't understand that either, but next.
The committee claims that they do this to save money, but it does not make sense to me because they have the funds available to pay a separate judge. A single member on the committee has spoke out, and he gets voted against every time. This is a very frustrating situation for those of us who are serious about the county fair. How do we prevent this from continuing?
Well, first off, I'm just going to state for the record that anybody that is qualified to judge sheep should be able to judge goats too. But evidently, somebody got on the mic at your county fair and said, I don't feel comfortable judging goats, which is a terrible thing to do. Do not say that, even if you think it. Terrible idea. But there's two ways to approach this. And I'm going to tell you one way, since this guy's getting shot down, is probably not going to work. But I would say get every little goat person in your county fair that agrees with you that you should have a separate goat judge and march your way into the county fair board meeting. And as a group, make your opinion heard. Now, since you're saying this guy that's on the committee is getting shot down, that's probably not going to work out for you. I'd still do it. And then when that does not work, I would have the money there for whatever they're paying the sheep judge. Y'all take up a collection, whatever, and show them in person the cash to pay for a goat judge for the next year. And then if they tell you no, they just don't give a shit. That's just all there is to it.
That would be accurate.
I mean, if you're that serious about it, then that's what I would do.
No, I think and I want to bring up one more thing, and I could not agree more, Ryan, with your statement that if they're capable of doing a good job sorting sheep,
they can do both.
They can do both, and
I believe that. I'm very serious on that.
Now there may be a mental block there and just lack of experience. I can see somebody getting up there and saying that, but in all reality, they can.
See, now you and I say that, then I'm going to say they weren't capable or qualified to judge the sheep show either. Yep. If they actually said that on the microphone, but
agreed.
That's just me.
Completely, totally agree. We always think about the weather side of things rather than the breeding sheep, frame sheep side, or the full-blood goat side. Can we agree on that?
Yeah.
So our problem is if we have a weather sheep guy come in, they could judge the market goats and the weather type goats fine, but then you get into the full-bloods where if it's a sanctioned show, they require a certified judge to look at pigment and mouths and ears and
clearly
teeth.
They do not, because these people don't hire new
exactly. So I can understand a sheep judge not being comfortable with full-blood regulations and goals and priorities and all those things. So I get that. And maybe
there's too much to that. That's why I'm not.
Yeah, maybe this person's coming from the full blood world, and if that's the case, I get it. You have to hire somebody that's familiar with.
And y'all quit asking me to take that test and become that person, because I think
that would be great for you.
I can't do it.
You know what would be the funniest though?
No.
If you
went
ahead
and mouth those things in the ring, I'm not ruining my manicure.
Check their teats.
I'm not. I just can't.
Lift their tail up and check.
More
pigment.
Power to y'all, and I think it is great that y'all have a certification process and all this other stuff. And there are many a days that I think that we should have something, but no, it's just not for me. But good luck.
I get it. Okay, the next one was actually addressed to me, but I'm going to let you answer it because I don't have an answer.
Jeez, thanks.
I should have eliminated this one completely because it's going to bring out something that you give me a hard time about on a regular basis. As always, I enjoy the podcast. Starts out great. Recently, at one of our district shows, my wife brought up the anxiety that I have before a show is unbearable. Don't. Just wait here. She said, she said, you're like a spinning top. How can I reduce my anxiety that I have pre-show? Usually after the show, I don't feel so anxious, but during the show and pre-show, I can feel the tension building inside of me. Any advice is appreciated. And please don't use my first name.
Drugs, people. Drugs.
That's what that's my only thing.
And Dale will not get on them, and I want him on them.
I will. So I just don't take time to do it. But I think I'm better now.
I don't think I'm going to make it through Kansas City and Louisville again with you this year.
I think I'm better. I think we're better now.
I do not. And the only reason that you might be better is because you see how difficult it is for me to watch this, and you know that I care enough to watch it anyway, and how much it pains me at times. And so I think the only reason you're better is because you're focusing on my misery. But anyhow,
that's possible.
I don't take anxiety medication because I really don't get like that. I mean, I get amped up and worked up, but not like that. But I think that would be something to look into. The one thing that I'm gonna tell you that I do a lot, and it's gonna sound stupid, but there's a lot of times it shows, especially when I had a bunch of kids showing for me and stuff like that. Not when I'm judging, but when we're either showing our beef masters or I had a bunch of kids showing for me. if I felt like the walls were closing in and, all those things, and there are times, I would just walk outside and like go be by myself for about 5 minutes and, do whatever. I mean, and that helps a lot just to clear your head, get away from it all when people aren't like all there on top of you. But I think if it is as big a problem as what you're saying it is, I do not think that I think that looking into anxiety medication might be something for you.
Absolutely. And I think this is probably more common than not.
Oh, I'm telling you, I've wanted to medicate many a people in my show career. No, I've never got to, but I've wanted to.
The final question. Hey, guys.
My parents medicated me. Does that count?
I can see that.
I'm not joking.
I would not be opposed to Sheree still doing that.
I mean, I'm not kidding you. They gave me Thorazine once. I'm not screwing with you people. It didn't work, but...
All right, last question. We're running way over time, and I thought this topic would be too short. Okay,
I always think that.
Hey, guys, I enjoyed listening to your podcast. When you evaluate sheep, we haven't had one of these for a while. You're going to say that we already answered this, and maybe we have. When you evaluate sheep, can you tell the difference between a manufactured, whatever voodoo they use, sheep versus all natural? I've never had the opportunity to feel a manufactured sheep, but always wanted to know if the judge could feel the difference.
It depends.
And they wanted their name left out again.
Well, I can understand that, but it depends. There are times when you can feel one that's been aired, or what Dale calls the crunchiness of it all. You can also sometimes feel when one has been injected with things to make the muscle swell and all that other stuff. But I'm going to tell you, I think that is probably fewer times than the ones that you don't catch. Because while you may think, Jesus, that is a large ass on a sheep, when you handle that sheep and bear down on that sheep, there's nothing, because some people are so good at it that you cannot feel it. And so, no, you can't feel it on all of them. And so I think that for me is the biggest dilemma a lot of times. If I can't for 100% feel and know that something's wrong, then I have to, even though sometimes I have a red flag in my head going, I just don't know if that one can have that much to it. I have to judge that animal as legit because I cannot feel anything that is iffy or anything like that. And so I can't make those judgments unless I know for sure. And I have been in situations where I have handled sheep and goats where I know they were aired, I know that they were injected, stuff like that. And that has affected the placing. But there have been times where I thought, ooh, this one might be a little something, and handled, absolutely felt nothing. And so I judge that animal just as it is, legit.
Yeah, Ryan, that's maybe one of the best answers I've ever heard. That's good. I particularly like the fact that you do run into some that there's no question these have been screwed with.
Yes.
But the fact that you mentioned that there's probably more that have been screwed with that you can't call out because
Absolutely.
They're good at it. I think when they're screwed, when we can call them out, it's those that are getting so brazen they don't think that they're going to throw that out in front of you, thinking the judge won't call it out, that brazen about it, and or they're just not very damn good at what they're doing.
Right.
And stupid about it, so they're making those mistakes. Not
experienced. I think it is more. I don't think it is the brazen as much as somebody says, everybody else is doing this, so I'm going to try it and have no knowledge how to do it. And so,
and then they get dinged.
And then they get dinged for it. And I think that is more the obvious things that happen. And so, again, I think it is a really, really hard situation right now. And I don't know what the answer is because, again, more and more, even at the big major shows, we're seeing that these animals aren't dying. I mean, back 10 years ago, maybe even 5 years ago, Dale, if so many more of these animals that placed or did well at these big major shows, whether it was the state fair, the big majors, whatever, most of those animals died in the market deal. It's over for them. They had to stay there. And more, that number is dwindling less and less. So there are less instances where we have a carcass to even look at to see if something might have been done. And so it's just opening the door more and more for these practices to continue, I guess is what I'm getting at in a not very concise way.
No, I think you got the point across extremely, extremely well. You and I are way too transparent, and I blame this on you. Okay, so I'm going to bring something up, and I'm going to stay very generic about it so we don't call out anybody or point fingers or anything like that. So on occasion, Ryan and I will judge shows back to back. He'll do ring A, I do ring B. More times than not, we are totally different. Sometimes we're right on. It's everything in between. We had a situation, and we talked about this the following day after both of us have finished judging those animals. But we had an animal, I'm not even going to say what species, that I called out. I said, it crossed the line for me. I'm pretty sure of it. Ryan goes through and same animals in there and couldn't just make that absolute. So you did not. And consequently, that animal does poorly under me and very well under Ryan. And that's just the reality of it, guys.
And at this same show,
now be generic.
I'm being generic, but at this exact same show, Dale lets one get across that the next day I'm like,
yes,
sir, that one had some issues, like more than a few.
I kind of forgot about that part.
I was like, so I mean, there you go.
Yeah, no,
and
that
these
is
two,
exactly
and this
right.
happened at the exact same show. One day he finds one that he calls out. The next day I could not find anything, but found one that he didn't. And so that's the problem with all this, folks.
And that's what it is. We can do our best, guys, but we, as Ryan said, we have to be sure. And if you're not, you just can't.
And the other thing is, I get a lot of people that say, well, why don't you just get on the microphone and say, that sheep in third is aired? Well, okay, that's real great. You go out there and you do that and you watch that kid.
Yep.
Just literally want to crawl underneath the ground and die. And I'm telling you, sometimes people, and I think this is about 50-50, the kids don't know. Especially if it's just something that's been injected and all this other stuff. Now, I will say, and Dale's heard me say this before, when I got my hands on this sheep, I just didn't like it. There's just something that didn't hit me right. It's not as natural in terms of feel as what I need. I will say things like that, and people still think that that's not enough. Well, there's not many people that will say that.
No, very, very few. And I probably go further with it when I'm in a bad mood. And Ryan, tell me, you explained it to me. I told you after I got done judging that day, it was I didn't enjoy myself at all. And you knew why. That one animal put me in a terrible mood.
Class.
Now, generic. We're saying generic.
It was
the first class.
Species. I said it was the first class.
And because that one comes in, it just puts me in I'm cranky the rest of the day from it. I shouldn't be, but I was. Just was.
And this just goes back to exactly what I tell people all the time. You do not understand the number of things that can affect what happens in arena when you are a judge. Whether it is something like that, it is a glare from an overhead. There are all these that people think it's so easy, and it's not. Like, there are a multitude of factors other than being an intelligent, capable, articulate person that can sort of show that work against you at times.
Agreed.
But that's another podcast.
This was good. I don't know that you and I enjoyed this one, but maybe the listeners won't. But I so
that's
much
why there's another one next week. They'll be fine.
They'll be fine. Well, I think that concludes where we're at. Until next week, be safe.
Y'all come back now, you hear?